Well, you know what? That was actually a pretty solid game. All things considered, the Vancouver Canucks losing 3-2 in a shootout to the Edmonton Oilers in the preseason was a very enjoyable experience. Okay, maybe not towards the end it wasn't too enjoyable. It was more hair-pullingly stressing out, but either way, the Vancouver Canucks end up falling to the hands of a much more experienced Oilers team in today's contest. Now, if you had been paying attention to the channel, you would have seen that earlier in today's show, we made a video talking about the two Red Wings games that were going on, and because of that, if you tried to put the puzzle pieces together, there was a period of today where I was watching 3 hockey games. Both Red Wings games were on, and then the Canucks game started, and it was just kind of a mess from my point of view, but I was still able to pay enough attention, I would say, to the Canucks games, and then when the Wings games concluded, we made our video. It was a lot easier to just focus and lock in on Vancouver-Edmonton. However, heading into today's game, a lot of Canucks fans were kind of concerned because the roster that Vancouver iced in this one was definitely not to the same caliber as to the roster that the Oilers put out there. Vancouver's most experienced Canuck player in this game was Nils Höglander, and everybody else was not a main Vancouver Canuck guy, other than, I guess you could say, Noah Juulsen and Mark Friedman, because the rest of this lineup featured Bains, Suter, Sprong, Ratu, Lekkerimaki, so maybe some of the top-end younger guys, and then you had yourselves Mueller, Smith. Then on defense, Kudryavtsev, Pettersson, Wolanin. There were no mainstay top-tier guys in this lineup. No Pettersson, Hughes, Miller, Brock, and no Hronek either. Meanwhile, in Edmonton, they ended up icing a roster that included McDavid, Draisaitl, Jeff Skinner, Viktor Arvidsson, Corey Perry, Adam Henrique. I mean, they put out their team. It was almost close to what the Oilers are going to resemble on opening night of regular season hockey. I did see some Canucks fans saying, oh, maybe the Canucks are a little bit spooked from what we had seen out of Patrik Laine in Montreal, what we had seen out of Brady Tkachuk in Ottawa. These top-tier, top-of-the-line players getting injured in meaningless games in the preseason, games that don't really mean much because we already know that these guys are going to be on the team. Everybody knew Tkachuk would have been a send this year. Everybody knew that Laine would have been a have this year. And now what? They're hurt. So maybe the Canucks got a little bit spooked out by that going on and thus decided to take a little bit more of an extended break, sitting out guys like Hughes, Petey, Miller, Besser, and Hronek. But I guess for the Oilers, they didn't really care because they iced out a lot of their main guys. I will say, though, I don't really feel like McDavid and Draisaitl were trying 100% like McDavid and Draisaitl in games 4, 5, and 6 of the Stanley Cup Finals against Florida. Those guys were completely different animals than the McDavid and Draisaitls that we had seen today. But of course, I mean, that's not surprising, right? They don't have to go out there and try to win this game with all their might. Edmonton, though, they do win anyways, 3-2 in a shootout, as we had talked about. Let's go over the goals, and then we'll talk about some of the storylines of this game here. Starting out with the first goal of the game, scored by Arshdeep Bains in the second period. Yeah, second period. It took until the second period for a goal to get up on the board here. Bains, on the power play, is the recipient of a beautiful passing play from Kiefer Sherwood and Daniel Sprong. The Canucks are playing tic-tac-toe, just moving it around the O-zone, and eventually Sprong goes over to Sherwood. He throws it out in front to Arshdeep Bains, and it's in the back of the net. Beautiful cross-crease play there for the Vancouver Canucks. Really nice catch, drag, release, and shoot from Arshdeep Bains to give the Canucks that lead there. Bains has had a really strong preseason. I think with the absence to Dakota Joshua, he's definitely one of the guys that could be vying for one of those final roster spots. It's him, Ratu, I would say. There are a bunch of other guys that have been good, but Bains and Ratu, I think, have been maybe the top two. Lekkerimaki, you could toss him into that conversation as well. But it stays 1-0 till the end of the second period, but not without any action, though. Vancouver, I felt, had a lot of strong goaltending support in this game from Kevin Lankinen. I thought he actually showed off very well. He seemed really confident in a lot of the saves that he made. He was getting a bit aggressive at times too, especially towards the end and in overtime, but for the most part, I felt that Kevin Lankinen played a really solid game. He's going up against some really good shooters in McDavid, Draisaitl, and then other chances in front too. You had Viktor Arvidsson, Jeff Skinner with some really interesting offensive opportunities there, and Kevin Lankinen had to show up and do his best to stop out some of these guys. Arvidsson had 4 shots in the game. Lankinen stopped them all. That is, until the third period began, because at the start of the third period, you had Corey Perry tying things up 1-1. Really nice goal here. McDavid gives the puck to Perry. He walks right across the slot, through to the far side, and then just shoves it in the open cage. Kevin Lankinen unfortunately committed a little bit too hard on the Corey Perry short side. He kind of pushed himself out a little bit, which gave Perry the angle to just walk around Lankinen. In an ideal world, you'd want to see a defender right in front of the doorstep to block Perry off from being able to fully access the opposite side. But either way, he scores the goal, and just a few minutes later, it's Ben Gleason who ends up scoring for Edmonton too. This is on the power play, and this was a longer shot from range. There was Kevin Lankinen actually complaining that Viktor Arvidsson was in the crease and kind of knocked his glove away, but goalie interference coaches challenges, I don't think they exist in the preseason, and plus, I didn't really think that was proper goaltender interference anyway. I think Arvidsson kind of bumped into Lankinen's glove hand after the puck had already gone in the net pretty much. So Lankinen trying to complain to get the call. I'm not surprised. It's a goalie. He wants to get them all back, but it's a longer shot here from Ben Gleason that gives the Oilers a 2-1 lead. But all it takes is 20 seconds for the Vancouver Canucks to bounce back. Mark Friedman goes over to Kirill Kudryavtsev on the left side. He walks right in, shoots, and it deflects off of Nate Smith and in. 2-2 game with 10 minutes to go in the third period. Really nice to see some of these other younger depth Canucks guys getting on the board. Smith, Kudryavtsev, of course, we haven't really seen too much offensively out of these guys, but in a pretty important game against the Oilers, against a superstar-filled lineup, you can't go wrong with seeing some of your younger guys produce goals. Heading into overtime, though, this is where things absolutely got crazy, and I don't ever want to see an overtime period like this again. Straight up. That was the most careless, kind of wonky, flawed, unpolished overtime that we may have ever seen at a professional National Hockey League level. I mean, the Canucks, just some of the passes, some of the pass receptions and the dangles, a lot of these younger guys. I mean, props to the coaching staff for giving Kirill Kudryavtsev and Ty Mueller and all these guys an opportunity to show what they're made of in overtime, but wow, did they stink. Like, so careless with the puck. Lots of fumbles and dropping it and losing it because you misjudged the space and how much time you have, and the Oilers were experienced and they have much more veteran-laced guys, so they were able to just kind of have their way at times. I will say, Vancouver had a pretty good defensive presence towards the end of the third period. They were blocking off passes and intercepting in the neutral zone. You love to see that out of the young squad, but in overtime, man, did these guys show off that they are legitimately just prospects. Vancouver had a few chances to clear it. They had a few chances to make the safe play, but they kind of kept on walking into danger, and it resulted in a lot of Oilers chances in overtime to continue cycling it and getting that offensive zone time. Vancouver, though, got themselves a really good chance towards the end of overtime, where Daniel Sprong received a pass from Kiefer Sherwood on a 2-on-1. Sprong took a shot on Skinner. Skinner made the save. Sprong then walked out in front, trying to go into the open cage because Skinner overcommitted, and then there was a guy in front blocking, so Sprong didn't shoot, and then Sprong got tripped up by Draisaitl. Draisaitl went to the box, and the Canucks could not score on the ensuing power play after. Again, just terrible puck management and some bad passes, which wouldn't be a problem if it was Pettersson, Hughes, and Besser and Miller out there, but you've got some of the prospects, so yeah, there's room for error for sure. The game then went over to a shootout. Connor McDavid got stopped up there. He dangled a little bit too tight to Kevin Lankinen. Jonathan Lekkerimäki hit the post. He had an opportunity to beat Skinner. He did beat Skinner, but didn't beat the iron. Leon Draisaitl then scores the game-winning shootout goal. He walks right in, and he takes a slap shot from the hash marks, from beyond the hash marks. He just rips it top cheddar on the open glove side on Lankinen. Look, I thought Lankinen had a great game today. I thought he played well, but he's not stopping that one. What a bomb from Draisaitl. Daniel Sprong then got stopped up by Stuart Skinner, and then Viktor Arvidsson dangled the pants off of Lankinen to give Edmonton the 3-2 win. All in all, not a terrible game, an entertaining game for sure, but one where if you look at the optimistic side of things, the Canucks shut him down in the second half of the third. They played pretty well. There's a lot of determination there. They just kind of have to work on some of the finer details. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below, though, about the Canucks versus the Oilers. I hope you enjoyed this British Ash Roll 99, and bye.